Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Political Letters podcast. Why the name, you might ask? Well, I thought it was an interesting joke regarding a certain prime minister who was outlived by a lettuce, and hence the name. It just makes me smile. Every time I see a lettuce, I automatically think about that particular prime minister. Sad? Maybe a little bit, but actually quite funny nevertheless. My name is Andrei Dragotoniu, I'm your host, and I intend to start with a bang. For my first episode, I would like to discuss Brexit, because why not? But before we get there, let's think and argue in favor of a new podcast, political or not, just a new podcast. You could ask the question, do we actually need one in the UK? Do we need another one? And the answer is, I think so, because we don't actually have that many conversations around political issues. Conversations coming from normal people. Now we have a few big names. We have quite huge podcasts, but they're quite few in relation to our closest ally, which would be the US, I guess. There, the podcast and the political conversation scene seems to be a lot more, let's say, mature. There's a lot of people talking about things. You can always find someone talking about whatever it is, whatever issues they would like to discuss. Here in the UK, however, we don't have that many options. And this is where I thought, hey, I'll put my name forward. Why not? What could go wrong, and see what happens. The whole point of the podcast is to talk about things from the angle and from the point of view of a normal person who is not a political analyst, who is not a journalist, who is not any of these careers involved in journalism or recording or podcast or whatever. Just a normal person. And every now and then I intend to have some guests as well. And we'll see what happens. We'll see if the channel can grow and if there is any interest for something like this. So, first things first. Why Brexit? Well, we all know that Brexit happened in 2016. It's been more than 8 years now, and yet we still talk about it. The last time I saw someone talk about it was a few days ago when Alastair Campbell was making a point trying to blame all the economical issues of our country on Brexit. And I started thinking that this needs to be addressed properly. There is a certain desire to lie to the British public, to present information in a certain way. And I find that actually quite not just annoying, but downright dangerous, because we seem to miss the important angles of why certain things happen. So let's go back a few years and remember, why did Brexit happen? There are a couple of reasons I can pinpoint quite easily. One was the increase in immigration from other European countries, especially in the 10 years before Brexit. So even starting with the Blair government, actually, the floodgates were open to immigration. Most of it from the European Union. But nevertheless, the numbers were quite big. And the second reason was, that's what I think is the first reason. Now, the second reason is the desire to make our own laws and control our own lives and not allow politicians from Brussels to dictate how we should live our lives. So these were the two main reasons why Brexit happened and why people voted for Brexit to begin with. Now, what has happened since, and we've seen it very clearly, Brexit was the referendum in 2016 was introduced by David Cameron. And I remember when Gordon Brown was Prime Minister, and Cameron was in opposition. At the PMQs, he used to ask and keep forcing this issue, asking the Labour government of the day, why were they not giving the British people a vote on this matter? Why wasn't there a Brexit referendum on the table? He was quite passionate about it, and I'm pretty sure it had something to do with his win after that. So David Cameron basically built part of his campaign on that promise of on delivering a Brexit referendum to our people. So once he got into power, he had to do it, and he did it. To his credit, let's say, he did it. I don't think he was genuine, however. I think he used it as a political tool to gain something, a win in the election. But he wasn't a firm believer that Brexit should actually happen, which is why, as soon as the result came out and it was clear that we were going to leave the European Union, the first thing David Cameron did was to resign. So one thing that I like to do, and this is one thing that I would like to encourage everybody to do, is to not just listen to the words politicians say, but look at what they do, look at their actions, and do their actions match their words? Because if they don't, then we are dealing with someone who is not honest and who is not genuine. And I believe David Cameron falls into that category, like pretty much all politicians, to be fair. So, okay, Brexit. Now, the argument is that since then, our country has gone downhill. The economy is in the gutter, nothing works anymore, and everything is blamed on Brexit. Now, I'm thinking to myself, okay, fair enough. Brexit happened, we left the European Union, but then we never actually did anything to take advantage of this freedom that we got. And if you look at what happened since 2016 up until today, you can see there's a certain lack of desire to move away from EU rules and regulations. We are still close to them in pretty much every area. And the reason for that is very simple, because our politicians are part of the same group, the same, I would call them a globalist group of politicians which run the European Union, run the UK, and pretty much every other major country which likes to think about themselves as a democracy, with the exception of US. US is now in a very different place since Donald Trump won. So we're going to touch about that a bit later. But for now, let's say that all these people who run the Western countries have the same kind of thinking, the same agenda, and the same goals in mind. And this is quite easy to prove. You can just look and see, okay, what matters to these people? Well, it's not the interests of normal people. It's not your interest they have in mind. No, the only thing they have in mind is what works in a globalist manner, the macro, if you want, of this world. Which is why you see the open borders policy pretty much everywhere in the West, right? Every country, European Union as well, we have the same open doors policy, and we have had this for the past more than 25 years now. Now that is in total contradiction to why we voted for Brexit to begin with. So yes, we got Brexit done, but we never actually implemented it. The whole idea was to take control of our borders. Now, British politicians like to tell us that it's impossible. You cannot protect the borders, which of course is a fallacy, especially for the UK, which is an island. Imagine that. We, on an island, we cannot protect our borders. That's insane. That's an argument that nobody believes, right? Why do I say this? Because it's quite easy to protect your borders. All you have to do is put a few ships in the channel, use Royal Navy. We have the border force for this. That is literally their job, right, to stop incoming illegal migrants. But they don't do that. The argument is that we have to save their lives. And to give you an alternative way of looking at this, imagine this scenario. You're on top of a mountain, a very tall mountain, right? And you jump all the way down. I don't know. It's quite a tall one. So if you fall down, you're going to die, right? You know this, and you're going to fall anyway. On your way down, your expectation is that the British government should catch you and save your life. And if they do not, then it's their fault and they need to pay for this. That's basically the argument. And of course, any normal person would think, hang on a minute, if you go into the channel yourself, then we cannot talk about saving you. It's not like you were part of a crash, a ship that, got in trouble into our waters, and of course we have to save those people. No. Now, you put yourself in that position to begin with, and now you expect us to come and save you. And I use save loosely here. It's not about saving, obviously, but this is the argument. So we are told it is impossible to protect our borders. Now, we know that's not difficult to do. It can be done quite quickly if they wanted to. Our government could basically stop the illegal migration in 24 hours. It's as simple as that. But anyway, this was used as a reason to why we cannot implement Brexit, or part of Brexit anyway, which is one of the main reasons we voted for Brexit to begin with, and that was to control our borders. So that apparently cannot be done. Now, if you look at our governments, especially, let's take Labour, because this is more up to date, right? Let's think Labour now. You probably noticed that Labour are doing their best to get as close as the European Union as possible, right? They stated they will not rejoin, although, let's be fair, how many of us really trust Labour with anything they say? So I'm going to say, I don't. I'm not going to speak for you, but I don't trust them at all. They've been proven to lie time and time again, so we can't trust anything they say. But let's put that aside for now. They're trying to get close. And why are they trying to get close? And that's the important question. And this is where I would like you, the listener, to think for yourself here as well. Why do you think they're trying to get close to the European Union instead of doing things which would benefit our country? And the reason, for me anyway, or one of the reasons, is that they don't know what to do. Two, they have no interest in doing anything because they still think in a globalist way, where their marching orders, come from the Brussels elites. And that's where Keir Starmer has a problem. Obviously, based on what they've done so far, you can see Labour have no plan. They have no idea, no policies, don't know what to do. What they would like to do is to be told what to do by Brussels. I think that's their end goal. So they don't have to think. This whole European Union thing has created a class of politicians which cannot think for themselves. They're not independent. They are subservient. They listen to what they're told. They take their orders from someone else. And that has happened over the past 30 years, or around that time anyway, about the last 30 years. You can see a few MPs now in our parliament who can think for themselves and come up with some solutions or try to hold government to account. You can see that happening, but there are very few of them. There's only a handful of them anyway. It's not all of them. Most of them don't have a clue. They like to be told what to do, and they like to not have to think for themselves. Now, you might ask the question, okay, what is the first job of a government? Let's think. Why do we even need a government? Well, one is to do their best for their people, right? And their country. I mean, that's obvious. Otherwise, there's no point in having a government if they're not going to put your own people first. And we're going to touch about this a bit later. And the second one is to keep your people safe. So, safety and care. Now, does this happen right now? Did it happen before? And if you think about it, you will see that the answer is no. Nobody cares about the people of this country because they have their globalist goals in mind. Globalist goals, which would mean open borders, which mean net zero, for example. All these things act against the local population. They increase your energy prices. They destroy your industries. But they don't care about that, because if they did, they wouldn't do it. And how do we know this should be done? Well, all we have to do is look at the US. Now, since Donald Trump won and became president, well, he hasn't been sworn in yet. He will be in January. But until then, anyway, you probably saw the rhetoric happening in the US, which is to put America first, to bring back manufacturing to America, to put tariffs on other countries, to force them to do what they need to do. Stop immigration, stop the illegal immigration from Mexico, deal with China and Canada to stop the inflow of drugs coming into the US. And suddenly, you noticed how these things can be done in 24 hours. The illegal migration which comes over the border from Mexico can be stopped immediately once you give an incentive to the Mexican government. Drugs coming over the border can be stopped very quickly as well once you get the other side interested in not actually pushing that over your border. So when you look at Donald Trump and realize that everything he does is to benefit his own people and his own country, then you start to ask yourself, okay, why can't we do the same thing? And the explanation is because we don't have the right politicians in place right now. So it's very easy to blame Brexit. You know, we are in a deep problem, economical issue right now because of Brexit. We're not. We are in this trouble, in this difficult times, because we haven't done anything to benefit our country. We don't have any policies which put our people first. We don't encourage private companies. We don't encourage farming. We don't encourage private endeavors of any kind. All we do is tax, 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 increase taxes, and make sure that people can live on benefits and not have to worry about work. And then we are surprised. And when you combine that with the open doors policy of immigration from other countries, then you're surprised that nothing works. Well, of course, it's not going to work because let's face it, as a country, we haven't done anything to improve things. So, when someone uses Brexit as a reason on why nothing works, that's only done with one thing in mind, one reason in mind, and that is to try and change the public perception to be more receptive to rejoining. But of course, we being independent people who can think for ourselves will think, okay, fair enough. So in that case, if we rejoin, we're going to have amazing industries and amazing economies, just like Germany and France. Well, hang on a minute. Do they actually have amazing economies, these two countries? And the answer is no, nothing is working there either. They are basically on their knees. And the reason is because they're a bit more advanced than we are on their road to destruction. And there was a report in Germany only a few days ago showing how many jobs have been lost due to their crazy net zero policies. The same thing is happening here, not on the same scale because we're not quite as advanced as they are, but we are getting there. So everybody is doing, and the European Union are pushing on with their crazy ideas, which means deindustrialization, destroying their industries, making everything more expensive for their people in an attempt to apparently save the planet. So even if we were to rejoin today, nothing would change. Things would continue to get bad and worse every day because nothing is being done to improve anything. And that's because the people who govern us do not have any intention to do what's necessary for the betterment of their own people. And that is the problem. So when someone blames Brexit, think a little bit and let's all think together and discuss things and realize, no, nothing is going to change. Even if we were to rejoin, things would continue to go bad. It's just that we would lose the one thing that we got from Brexit, which is the ability to do what we want for ourselves without having to listen to the Brussels elites. Now, we're not quite doing that yet, but hopefully the next government will take care of that, as long as it's not Labour or Tories, as long as we vote for someone who puts this country first. Now, you could say, hang on a minute, that's a populist thing, and I'm going to have to disagree with you. It is a normal thing. It was a normal country does. It is not uncommon for a country to put their own people and their interests first. I mean, this wasn't even a debate even a few years ago. Only now it's like, oh my God, it's such a populist view. It's not. It's normal. It's what should happen. We should all want to live in a strong UK with strong army, strong economy, strong industry, where we produce what we need, and we do not depend on other countries. That's what Brexit gave us, the ability to do exactly that. So, let's think, what do we need for our country to function properly? Well, people need to have jobs, right? They need to be able to earn a living, a decent living, without looking at every 1 or 2 pounds and decide that they have to choose between food or energy, for example. So, number one, jobs. Number two, a decent health service. Not what we have right now. Now, the NHS, we could talk about the NHS for quite a while. I'm probably going to do an entire episode on that later. But for a functioning country, you want a national health service which actually works. Then you need a working police force, and that's the subject of another episode. It's a whole new thing, but you need a decent police force. You need to enforce your borders and protect your borders, which we know is not happening right now. You need to be able to produce enough food for your people. We're not doing that because we are attacking our farmers. We pay them. The government actually pays them to stop farming. And that's been happening for a while. And not only that, but now they're trying to tax them so much with this inheritance tax that they will have to sell the farms and not farm anymore. Insane. So, and if you get these things under control and combine that with cheap energy prices, at that point you have a functioning country. Until we get there, we're not going to. But my point is, and this is how I want to end this episode, I know things are bleak, but the point of this podcast is not just to moan about things, it's to present solutions as well. So I fully believe that there is a way out of this darkness, and it wouldn't take very long, but it needs to be, we need someone who is dedicated and prepared to go in and start making the right calls. Every problem can be solved. It doesn't matter how difficult it seems. And I'm going to leave you on one final thing. This is where you need a bit of an engineering brain to do this. When you look at a problem and it looks huge and insurmountable, what we do is take that problem and split it into small problems, and we fix those one at a time. But we always have a goal in mind. Each little thing we solve leads to something bigger. Now, this being into politics, you also have to bring the people with you on that journey. You can't just start doing things because there are other factors as well. So you can't just have a government which does things without explaining what's happening. And this is where you need a vision. So, hey, look, this is what we're doing. This is the vision, and this is how we're going to get there. We're going to do A, B, C, D. And once we accomplish all these things in the next 3 years, then this is going to happen. And that's how you do it. But you need to be determined, you need to go in there, and you need to believe in what you say and what you do. And match your words with your actions. Until that happens, things are not going to get any better. But anyway, I'm hoping this was an interesting episode for you. Please do let me know if you have any comments or any questions, if you'd like to debate anything. I believe it is important to have podcasts like this, small, independent, where we can talk about things, we can discuss things without going crazy, without calling each other names, without attacking each other, because that's not democracy, that's not freedom of speech. We all should be able to go back to a rational discussion on anything. And that's what's missing right now. And that's why this podcast exists, because we need to be able to discuss things in a rational manner, whatever the subject is. Thank you very much for listening, and I will talk to you next time. Bye.